welcome to the debate. Imagine for a second that you're mid-panic attack because a multi-million-dollar server just crashed.
Or, you're walking into a boardroom fully expecting a complete bloodbath over quarterly earnings.
Right, exactly. You are sweating, your heart is racing, and right at that exact moment, someone taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, just achieve perfect detached spiritual enlightenment right now.
Which sounds completely impossible, right? I mean, it almost sounds like a bad joke.
It really does.
You're trying to put out a massive literal or metaphorical fire, and you're being asked to just float about it all.
Yeah, it feels fundamentally contradictory. Because when we talk about blending those two forces, like intense professional worldly ambition and deep silent spiritual detachment, we tend to assume it's like mixing oil and water.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can pour them into the thing glass and stir them up as violently as you want, but eventually they are going to separate.
Right, because they seem to demand entirely different operating systems from our brains. You're either down in the mud, sending emails, analyzing spreadsheets, dealing with earthly crises, or you are sitting quietly on a mountaintop, completely removed from the chaos.
It's a binary.
Exactly. Treating it as a binary choice is just easier for us to process.
It is absolutely cleaner to view it that way. But today, we are diving into a spiritual framework that actually rejects that binary completely. We are exploring the profound tension and the required balance between maintaining a high state of spiritual awareness and fulfilling the very real, gritty physical duties of daily life.
And specifically, we want to look at this through the lens of the working professional. Because, how does someone achieve profound personal spiritual evolution while navigating the unavoidable, heavy demands of a modern career and household?
Right. And that is a question anyone who has ever tried to, meditate at 6 a.m. and then completely lost their temper in traffic by 7:30 a.m. has desperately grappled with.
Oh, 100%.
So my position today is that true spiritual evolution is achieved through a seamless, simultaneous integration of worldly action and spiritual detachment, which is the ideal of what is called the Karma Yogi.
And I look at the exact same framework and draw a very different conclusion. I argue that the text outlines a highly pragmatic, rapid oscillation, a necessary toggling between physical engagement for survival and retreating to pure spiritual consciousness, acknowledging the inherent friction between the two.
Well, let's jump right into that tension. For me, this framework offers a perfectly cohesive model for the active householder. We aren't being told to run away to a cave in the Himalayas.
No, definitely not.
The concept of the Karma Yogi is entirely rooted in what is called grihastha vyavahar, which roughly translates to the daily conduct of the household and worldly affairs. You have to be in it. And the central metaphor here is the lotus flower.
Which is a beautiful image, sure, but I think it gets romanticized a bit too easily.
Perhaps, but let's look at the mechanics of how a lotus actually survives. It is fully rooted in the water. It literally draws its sustenance from the thick mud at the bottom of the pond.
Right.
But the petals of the lotus remain completely untouched by that mud. So the directive for the working professional is identical. Work with your hands, manage the team, do the physical tasks required of you, but keep your consciousness anchored in remembrance of the Supreme.
But is that actually feasible?
Well, spiritual awareness isn't supposed to be an escape hatch from daily duties. Maintaining that connection while walking, moving, sitting, and typing actually alters the physical quality of the action itself. It yields what the text refers to as a tremendous income.
I want to stop you right there on this idea of tremendous income in the lotus, because I think we can't ignore the sheer pragmatism at the root of this philosophy.
Okay.
You cannot take action without a physical body. And, bodies need to eat. The stomach demands food. When we look at the reality of this, the framework doesn't sugarcoat the physical realm at all.
No, it doesn't.
It literally calls this world dukkha, the world of sorrow, or the abode of suffering. It is a space characterized by degradation and friction.
It absolutely is. It's a challenging environment.
Right. So rather than a seamless, effortless blend of spirit and matter, what we actually see prescribed is a radical, disciplined oscillation to survive that environment.
Oscillation?
Yes.
Think about the specific practice being outlined. You pull your consciousness into the physical body specifically for the sake of physical sustenance. You perform the necessary action, and then you must immediately return to being dehi abhimani, which is soul conscious.
Well,
It is an active mechanical switching of gears. You are surviving the world of sorrow just long enough to perform a duty, and then fleeing back to the spiritual state to recover.
okay, I see where the oscillation theory comes from, but I think focusing solely on the toggling misses the causal link between the inner state and the outer action.
How so?
Let's break down the mechanics of action in detachment. If you just sit there and think, I am a soul, and forget your body entirely, nothing gets done.
Right. Absolutely. No one is arguing for total paralysis.
Right, so let's take a mundane example the framework uses, which is preparing your own food. The instruction isn't to prepare the food, stop, and then meditate. It's to prepare the food while staying in deep spiritual remembrance.
Okay.
And the fascinating mechanism here is the claim that by doing so, the food itself actually becomes better, and the soul benefits.
But how does a thought make food better? I mean, physically.
Through the removal of psychological friction. Think about it. When you are chopping vegetables while truly soul conscious, you aren't agonizing over an argument you had yesterday.
Sure.
You aren't spiked with cortisol worrying about tomorrow's deadline. You have removed ego, panic, and anxiety from your physical movements. You're present, elevated, and precise.
I get that, but
That lack of emotional interference translates to clearer decision-making and fewer mistakes in the physical world. If you can perfectly hold spiritual remembrance while dealing with fire, knives, and timing, you are proving that the two states are not mutually exclusive. They are emulsified.
okay, I actually love that you brought up the cognitive mechanics of this, because that is exactly where the seamless integration argument starts to crack for me. Let's talk about cognitive load.
All right?
Chopping vegetables is a rote task. It is physical. You can build muscle memory for it, allowing your higher cognitive functions to just, drift into spiritual contemplation.
True.
But what happens when you and I step into the office on Monday, and the task isn't chopping carrots, but drafting a 60-page merger and acquisition contract? Or what about an emergency room surgeon diagnosing a patient in critical condition?
You're saying the cognitive bandwidth required leaves no room for spiritual awareness.
Exactly. I want to introduce a different analogy here. Forget the lotus for a second. To me, the working professional in this paradigm operates much more like a deep-sea diver.
A deep-sea diver. Okay, walk me through that.
Well, a deep-sea diver operates in an environment, the bottom of the ocean, that is fundamentally hostile to their natural state of being. The pressure is crushing. To survive down there and perform a specific, necessary task, they have to put on a highly specialized suit.
Okay.
In our case, that suit is the physical body, and the deep ocean is de Gukdam, this dense, heavy physical world.
I'm following you.
Now, a diver cannot stay at the bottom of the ocean indefinitely. The pressure is simply too great, the air supply is limited, they must constantly return to the surface to breathe, to recalibrate, to just survive.
Right.
We are told repeatedly that body consciousness is the very root of human degradation. If deeply identifying with the body is inherently damaging, how can a professional deeply immerse their mind in complex, high-stakes earthly tasks without suffocating spiritually? They can't just hang out at the bottom of the ocean pretending it's fine. They have to dive down, exert intense cognitive and physical effort, and then immediately surface for air. Action, then retreat. That is the oscillation.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and it really paints a vivid picture of the pressure we all feel in the modern workplace. But I have to push back on your definition of body consciousness, because I think it conflates two different things.
Which two things?
You are equating the performance of a complex task with body consciousness. But in this philosophy, they are distinctly separate.
How so? I mean, if I am using 100% of my brain to draft a legal document, how am I not bodily engaged?
You are bodily engaged, sure, but body consciousness is an identity issue, not a measure of processing power. Body consciousness is the false, deeply ingrained belief that you are the diver's suit, rather than the diver inside it.
Okay.
The Karma Yogi model suggests you can be perfectly, profoundly aware that you are the diver, entirely separate from the neoprene and the helmet, even while manipulating that suit to perform incredibly complex microsurgical tasks at the bottom of the ocean.
But
the integration we're talking about happens in the identity. You don't abandon the task to remember who you are. You remember who you are so you can execute the task without the pressure crushing you.
But look at the language used to describe the lived experience. We see phrases describing a sequence in time. Just now you come into the body, and just now you become soul conscious. Action, then retreat.
I think that's
It acknowledges that when you are fully engaged in the mechanics of physical survival, your spiritual tether is strained. The risk of getting caught up in the stress of the boardroom is so high that you need an immediate, disciplined return to the soul-conscious state the second the meeting ends.
I struggle with that conclusion because it ignores the specific psychological framework we are given to protect ourselves from that exact risk.
The framework?
Right. If the pressure of the deep ocean is so dangerous, what is the armor? We aren't just told to try really hard not to get stressed. We are given a highly specific psychological remedy.
Which is?
We are instructed to adopt a dual identity, to treat ourselves as a Mahasoul, which means a great soul, and simultaneously as a Mehman, which means a guest.
Oh, the guest mentality.
Exactly. Treating yourself as a guest in this old world, in your office, and even in your own physical body. By adopting the identity of a Mehman, you perfectly shield yourself from the pressure of the ocean. Think about how a guest behaves.
they're detached.
Yes, a guest walks into someone else's house, interacts warmly with the family, maybe even helps cook dinner or fixes a broken chair in the living room, but they do not have the underlying anxiety of ownership.
Right.
If the roof leaks, the guest doesn't panic. They don't have those sticky attachments. For the working professional, this is the ultimate cognitive tool. It removes the attractions of attachments and the fear of loss, allowing you to perform your daily duties seamlessly without being emotionally crushed by the fallout.
I will grant you that the guest framework is a fascinating psychological defense mechanism. It definitely lowers cortisol. But let's actually push the boundaries of that framework in a real-world corporate setting,
Go ahead.
because I think it proves my point about the limitation of integration. If you and I step into the office on Monday and we truly, deeply view ourselves merely as temporary guests, like if we treat the company like an Airbnb we are just renting for the weekend, waiting to return to our true spiritual home, Shanti Dham, don't we inherently lose our edge?
Why would a lack of anxiety equal a lack of drive?
Because a guest inherently lacks long-term investment. If I am renting an Airbnb and the refrigerator starts leaking, I am not going to spend hours diagnosing the compressor or paying to replace the fridge. I'll throw a towel on the floor, keep my food in a cooler, and leave on Sunday.
Right, but
In a professional context, excellence usually requires deep, painful, long-term investment. It requires losing sleep over a problem because you own the outcome. If you are entirely detached, if you are just a visitor passing through the world of sorrow, where does the motivation come from to build a groundbreaking company or to solve a massive logistical crisis?
I see. The guest mentality seems to inherently cap our level of physical engagement. It treats the physical world as a secondary, somewhat unfortunate necessity, not a space for total integration.
I see the logic there. And honestly, if guest was the only word used, I would completely agree with you. You'd end up with a very apathetic workforce. But you're isolating the word mehman, guest, and forgetting the essential other half of the pairing, mahan, which is great soul.
How does greatness change the Airbnb scenario, though?
Because greatness implies inherent virtue, excellence, and benevolence. A Mahan soul doesn't do a half-hearted job just because they don't hold the deed to the building.
Okay.
They perform the action beautifully because the quality of the action reflects their own inner spiritual state. You don't fix the leaking fridge because you are financially anxious about property values. You fix the fridge because leaving a mess for someone else is beneath your fundamental nature. The motivation entirely shifts.
So the stakes move from external rewards to internal integrity.
Exactly. You are no longer working 80-hour weeks out of the desperate need for promotion, or the fear of being fired, or the desire to crush your competitors, which are all exhausting byproducts of body consciousness.
That makes sense.
You are working with excellence because that is simply the nature of a pure, powerful soul. You are contributing to the world from a place of fullness rather than trying to frantically extract value from your job to fill your own internal emptiness.
That is a very elegant way to frame the motivation, but it brings us to a critical juncture, I think. How do we actually measure the success of this practice?
The metric of success.
Right, if I'm oscillating between the boardroom and the mountaintop, or if I'm seamlessly integrating the two, what is the ultimate velocity of spiritual evolution?
Well, the metric of success is actually defined very clearly in the material. The goal of this entire practice isn't to become a disconnected, passive observer staring blankly at a spreadsheet. The ultimate goal is to develop a mind so spiritually evolved, so profoundly trained, that it acquires the speed of a second.
The speed of a second. Yeah, this is where we are going to fundamentally disagree on what the destination looks like.
Let me set it up first. A powerful mind is described as one that can reach wherever it wants in a single second. It can be fully present here in the physical world, managing a crisis, and a second later, it can instantly expand its consciousness to reach the highest spiritual realms, Shanti Dham, the abode of peace.
Right.
I look at this incredible mental agility and see the absolute peak of personal evolution. It proves that the Karma Yogi is so unburdened by the friction of daily life that their consciousness is universal. They can manipulate the physical world without being trapped by time or space. The lotus isn't just surviving the mud. It has mastered its environment completely.
See, we actually agree on the metric itself. This mental agility, this speed of a second, is undoubtedly the pinnacle of evolution in this specific framework. But how you interpret that speed is exactly where we diverge.
Why?
To me, the speed of a second perfectly validates my initial position. Ask yourself, why do you need the speed of a second? You need it because you are oscillating. You are executing a high-speed toggling maneuver.
But at that speed, the toggling is effortless. It becomes a unified state.
Effortless for the master, sure, but the fundamental mechanics are still a movement away from the physical. It is a rapid flying back and forth. You are flying away because, as we established, the current world is dukta ham. It is dense and heavy.
Right.
The practitioner must constantly, rapidly escape it to maintain their spiritual health. The very fact that the mind must be trained to instantly jump out of the physical reality and into the spiritual one proves that the two realities are in fundamental tension.
So you don't see it as an expansion, but as an escape.
Exactly. You don't need to jump out of a swimming pool if the water is perfectly fine and breathable. You jump out because you are holding your breath.
Wow.
The speed of a second is the ultimate survival mechanism. It is the deep-sea diver realizing they're out of oxygen and hitting a button that instantly rockets them to the surface. They are a soul trapped in a body, fulfilling their necessary duties because they have to, but they are desperate to breathe the air of their true home. The speed is necessary because the environment is lethal to spiritual awareness.
That is a beautifully stark way of looking at it. I have to admit, the architectural logic of the diver needing instantaneous air makes a lot of sense when you factor in the harsh realities of the corporate world.
It fits the reality we live in.
It does. But let's take a step back and look at where our perspectives actually converge. Because despite our intense disagreement on the internal mechanism, we are circling a shared, highly pragmatic truth in the material.
Yes, we are. I mean, we both acknowledge that this framework unequivocally forbids the abandonment of physical duties. There is absolutely no room here for the ascetic who runs away from their responsibilities or the employee who just, gives up on their work under the guise of spiritual detachment.
Completely. The framework demands that spiritual evolution happens within the context of daily life, within grihastha vyavahar. You must feed the body, you must perform actions, you must engage with the world. The evolution is forged in the fire of daily duty.
It is unavoidable. But we maintain a substantive and I think deeply important disagreement on the lived experience of that evolution.
We do. I maintain that we are looking at a cohesive, lotus-like integration. By holding on to the dual awareness of being a Mahan soul and a Memon, a great guest, the Karma Yogi transforms daily duties and spiritual remembrance into a single, seamless reality.
Right.
The action is elevated by the thought,
and the practitioner contributes to the world from a place of fullness, requiring no escape hatch.
And I maintain that what we are actually reading is a highly pragmatic, deeply disciplined manual for oscillation. It is a high-speed toggling between the gritty reality of physical survival and the pure, detached reality of spiritual consciousness. The tension between the abode of peace and the world of daily duties is intensely real. Mastering that tension, becoming that deep sea diver who can instantly return to the surface for air in a second, is the true marker of evolution.
It is a remarkable challenge for any working professional to contemplate as they start their work week. Are we mixing oil and water, hoping for a temporary emulsion that requires constant shaking? Or are we attempting something more profound, a true psychological alchemy where the physical and the spiritual no longer repel each other?
Mastering the speed of the mind offers so much more to explore. It really forces us to ask what we are actually doing and who we actually are when we sit down at our desks every morning.
Indeed it does. We will leave it to you, the listener, to determine how best to navigate your own physical duties and your spiritual awareness. The next time you are in that high-pressure meeting, ask yourself, are you the deep-sea diver coming up for a desperately needed breath of air, or are you the lotus flower resting untouched on the surface? Thank you for joining us.